City of Refuge for Bishop Noel Jones, and I was on my way out, and a young lady came and slipped me her book, a book called From Porn to the Pulpit. I said, Lord, what in the world is this? I got to the hotel, and I started reading the book, and I read the book in one night. I was so overwhelmed and enamored by her testimony about how it is that the Lord brought her out of the porn industry and is now is a beacon light for young women all over the world about getting to God. I need you to please help me warmly welcome my sister, Minister Danielle Williams. Give God glory for her. Thank you so much. Your story is so riveting, is so compelling. I know you thought I was joking, but I was up all night with jet lag reading your story. The next night at the revival, I told you, I got up and endorsed the book. I hadn't even shaken her hand yet and said, put her table next to mine. I want her to get everything. I want you, before we even talk about everything else, I want you, there's some mother who's frustrated, some child who's making a critical decision in their life. I want you to just talk about your testimony if you can. Give me the shrink wrap version so we can jump in. But if you will, just tell the watchers and the viewers and now on radio, the listeners, a little bit about your testimony.
Well, before I became the porn star and the stripper, I was a little girl. And I think that people fail to realize that. They see these people not knowing that there are things that take place in your life to make you make certain decisions. Nobody just wakes up and says, I want to be a porn star, I want to be a stripper. So before I became that, I was a little girl who grew up in a very dysfunctional household. Father was abusive. I was molested at 8 years old by my babysitter's son. My father, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, tried to kill me when I was 10 years old. When I was 12 years old, there was a neighbor who lived across the street whom I trusted, a family friend who raped me when I was 12 years old. At 13 years old, I met a 27-year-old pimp, had engaged in sexual activity one time, got pregnant at 13 years old by this man. At 14 years old, ran away from home.
Jeez.
Yes, it's a lot. 14 years old, ran away from home, got a fake ID, and started stripping in the clubs.
At 14?
14 years old, decided that was too much for me and wanted to go back to church. I was 15, and I said, you know what, I don't want to do this. I went and lived in Compton with my grandparents, and they put me in church, and I was like, you gonna stay here. If you're gonna live with us, you're gonna go to church. And I felt like I was there every day. So if I was gonna be there as much, I wanted to get involved in something that I enjoyed. And at that time, I used to love to sing in the choir. While I was in that choir, my choir member from that church introduced me to prostitution.
Wow.
Yes, not only did she introduce me to prostitution, but drugs and alcohol followed. And then at 18 years old, I found myself in the porn industry.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just need a nap. I mean, just right here. But God brought you through faithfully.
Faithfully.
And is operating in ministry, talking all over, literally now the world. And last I saw you in Ireland somewhere, is now happily married in Atlanta. Amen.
Absolutely.
To a wonderful man of God who supports her and pushes her. What is it that the church needs to be doing about this silent issue of human trafficking?
I think the church has done a disservice because we come from a background of what happens in this house stays in this house. And so we have that mentality, right, and we choose not to deal with certain things. And I believe that a lot of people are suffering, struggling, and dying because we choose to be silent.
Wow. What would be the steps? Is this a responsibility of you? I'm bringing you to a group of church leaders. Mm-hmm. Who should be talking to this? Is this a mission of the youth ministry, of the men's ministry, the women's ministry? Who should be targeting for us to go and really go to snatch literally our children back? Whose responsibility, what ministry does that fall under?
All of the above.
Wow.
All of the above. And the reason why I say that is because the men are struggling with it, the women are struggling with it, and the children want to do it.
Wow.
So you cover all bases.
Right. When you're living now in the industry, we just finished talking to Devon Franklin, where our children now dancers mimic stripping. They twerking and on the floor, and they dressing up like strippers, not for Halloween, but for school. Yeah. And young men now call themselves affectionately pimp. How do we then take away the glamour of that industry and see the raw ugliness of the device of the adversary to really strip our children of their self-esteem. At what point do we now address it head on?
It has to be transparent. I think that kids are tired of the same old, the same approach. And so when you come at them real, the reason why the children that I deal with and that I mentor are so receptive to me is because I keep it real, keep it 100 at all times. They're tired of the lies. They're tired of the foolishness. You have to give it to them straight. And what it is, it's a trap. Right. And I think that so many people will be receptive if we will open up and tell them our own struggles and where we came from. Right. We try to get so holier than thou and forget where we come from. Right. And sometimes we need to have a flashback and remind them that I wasn't always saved. Before God touched me, I was just as dirty and down low as you want to be. Right. And so we need to get back to that point.
I was recently on VH1 on a discussion on homosexuality and hip-hop. And I opened up by saying, Danielle, that it's not just about homosexuality. The church doesn't deal with any sexuality. We don't deal with abortion. We don't talk about incest. We don't talk about rape. We don't talk about predators in church. And so all of it has become taboo. And for us to pull that back, it's got to start from the top down. And in that, I wanted to ask you a very critical question is, what is the first approach? If we're going back home, some first lady is watching and saying, I want to do this. Some youth leader is saying, you know what, this is an area, because everybody has somebody in our church who's impacted. If they're not stripping, they're watching internet porn or late night Showtime after dark. And so how do we begin to have that conversation in the sacredness of the sanctuary?
I think there's everything should be done in decency and order. So, of course, we still have to keep God first, but I think that we should have a real moment, whether it is the youth pastor getting the youth together and having a Saturday night service, make it interesting. You understand what I'm saying? You have to meet them at their level, whatever that may be. Meet them at their level and then bring them in. Whatever tactics that you have to take to get them to get their attention. And the first ladies, sometimes if the first ladies want to do it, put together a brunch, because they like brunches. So put together a brunch and let's talk about your marriage being in trouble because your husband is addicted to pornography. And let's have that kind of let's meet them where they're at.
Now, let me ask you this. Tell us how it is. What was the moment where you woke up and said, I'm not doing this anymore?
For me, I got a chance. Being in the porn industry, you're connected to mainstream celebrities as well and all kind of things. And so I had an opportunity to travel the world. And one place I always wanted to go was New York. Long story short, a man contacted me over the internet, flew me from Los Angeles to New York, wined and dined me for the first 3 days and instantly just switched. And this man took me to an abandoned home, locked me in a basement, beat me, raped me, did everything you can think of, and told me I was going to die. And at that moment, my life flashed before my eyes. And at 19 years old, I had accepted death. But because I was a Christian, and I stayed in church.
I'm stealing that.
I was a hypocrite, and I stayed in church even though that I was living a double lifestyle. There were still seeds being planted while I was on those pews. And so while I was in that basement, something in me said, pray. And I prayed like I never prayed before. And I said, Lord, if you get me out of this, I'll change my life for you. Just don't let me die.
Wow.
A few days later, that man's friend came to that house looking for him, found me, got me out of the basement. I flew back from New York, got to LA, and I never looked back.
Wow.
God honored my prayer.
Wow. Wow. And I think, come on, y'all got to give God glory for that. And there's so many more who right now feel trapped and need a way of escape. And I really want to do what the church doesn't know how to do, is I want you to appeal not even to church, but to people who are watching, who are in the industry or in that lifestyle, whatever level that is, whether they're a bouncer at the club, the bartender, whether they're an actual dancer, the DJ, the pimp, whatever it is that they're doing. Many of them will never step foot in church and may have just come on the Word Network by accident. What would you say to them tonight? What message would you give to them?
What I would say to them right now is, regardless of what it is, never mind what people think of you or what they say about you. Don't allow fear to direct you. But if God saved me, he's able to save you too. There is a way out. You do not have to continue doing what you're doing. I know it sounds cliche, I know it sounds church, but if God be for you, who can be against you? The same God that was able to snatch me out of it is able to snatch you out of it. I know it might seem scary when all you know is the hustle and the game, but if you trust God, God will open up another door. He did it for me and he's able to do it for you. He's no respecter of persons. I'm from the hood. I've been through everything you can think of, and if he put his hand on me, he's able to put his hand on you. If you trust him, he'll open up the door for you to get out of it. Even now, I stand with you even now, and I serve Satan. I serve you the notice that you have no power and no authority over God's chosen. Even now, brother, sister, I'm standing with you. I'm believing God for you that there is a way out.
I want you right now to order this book, From Porn to the Pulpit. Get it for your daughter, for your son, get it for your spouse. Let your men's group read this. Let your women's group read this. Let your singles group read this. Somebody's going to get delivered because of this. Would you help me thank God for my sister, my friend, and even my colleague? The fight is over. That's the word of God over your life. The fight